And we are live. Today I have Marie with me. She's actually a friend that I met through the internet. So that is a real thing. We were just talking before I hit record how we met through Instagram. And I don't really remember who followed who. Oh, okay. I also have children here, as many of you know, where everybody's basically on lockdown right now as we are recording this. So I have my two kids here. I'm sure she has her kids there. I heard ya. um, Anyways, so today we're going to talk about Marie and how her health coaching journey started. So Marie, I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself while I take care of this toddler, and then I will kind of ask questions. We'll just have a conversation.
Okay, sounds good. So I will actually say that I started following you first, and I was listening to some free webinar that you did, and you convinced me to step out of my shell and find some confidence. So had you have not done that, we would not be here today.
Oh, that's so awesome. I remember. Okay, so that just like charts my memory, because I do remember you saying that, like, oh, you gave me the confidence. So I love that. That just made my day.
Yes, you'll always be very special to me for that, because I remember the moment, and when I was like, all right, Sasha says I can do this, I'm going to go do it. Anyway, so my name's Marie Stallings. I am a mother of 3. I am a health and fitness coach and an animal lover. We have 10 animals, 5 dogs, a cat, 2 goats, a horse, and a donkey. So life stays busy around our house, that's for sure. And I decided, after kind of going through my own health and fitness journey, which started literally, my only goal was to get unfat, was what I told myself. And I thought I was going to do it for a little bit and just lose the weight. And I found so much more in my life because of it, just happier, healthier. I loved what I was doing, and I decided that I wanted to go help other people.
I love that. So let's take it a step back. I want to look back, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 10 years. Like, I know we have a lot in common with the animals. And I mean, not that that has anything to do with it. I just love that. And I feel like a lot of people think that just because you have an acreage or you have a farm, like you're just naturally healthy or active because of all the things you have to keep you busy. But I would say that at least in my case, that's not necessarily true, because going back in my journey, I too can relate to the just wanting to be skinny. Like, you're like, oh, I'm going to eat this food because it's going to make me skinny, or I'm not going to eat this food because it's going to make me skinny, versus eating for overall health and wellness. So when would you say, like, you were like, woke up one day and you're like, something's got to give? Like, can you walk us through that moment?
So for years, I fluctuated back and forth with weight. With each of my pregnancies, I gained 50 pounds. And eventually, with the first 2, I lost it. And my kids are 17, 14, and 5. So there was a age gap, and I was older with my 3rd child. And of course, when it was harder to lose it, I just thought it was age. And I did tons of different diets over the years. And even with that, I would get stressed and I would gain weight, or I would get stressed and I would not eat. And there were times that I was way too skinny, but I was never really healthy. I did what I thought was healthy, but never actually took the time to learn about it. And even when I was younger, I used to spend a lot of time at the gym, but I look back and I didn't really know what I was doing. I thought spending an hour at the gym meant that I was doing healthy things, but really I just kind of tooled around until my hour was up. So in the summer of 2017, I had a miscarriage, and it was really hard for me. I still hadn't lost all the baby weight from my youngest, and whenever all that happened, I gained a lot of weight. I always thought that pregnancy made me fat, but I realized um, after talking with my doctor that it was lack of activity that made me fat. And, or I hate using the word fat, but I ballooned up.
I know
Um,
what you mean, though. Like just a larger size in general, like something that doesn't make you feel comfortable. I mean, would that describe how?
yes, yes. Like literally uncomfortable in my own body
Yeah.
because of excess body fat. And eh, I I had gained some weight when I first found out I was pregnant, and it just kind of went on like immediately. And then I had the miscarriage, and I was pretty depressed. And in talking with my doctor afterwards, I'm like, why do I always gain so much weight the second I get pregnant? And she said, you know, you're not moving enough. And I'm like, I just the same thing that you were talking about. I'm like, I live on a farm. I have animals. I'm always have chores. I've got
Hmm.
3 kids. Like, how can you tell me I'm not moving enough? And she said, but you're not actually exercising. And, you know, in looking back, I have always suffered with morning sickness or all day sickness in my pregnancies. And I kind of used that as an excuse to, if I didn't have to do something, to not do anything. And but I kind of brushed off what she said because I'm like, I'm active. I am totally active. Well, come November, I had an opportunity to be in, they called it a beta test group. And it was really just, they were truly collecting data, health data, from a group of women who were following a meal plan, basically, or a diet plan that was meant to be a healthy lifestyle. And in that, they taught us a lot about health, about why it's good to eat certain ways, and why movement is important. And I'll tell you that first workout that I did, and the workouts that I do, they can be done anywhere. I choose to do them at home because that's what works best for me. But the first workout I did, 2 minutes in, I looked at my husband and I said, what have I gotten myself into? Because I, that's what I knew. Like, okay, I really am not as fit as I think I am just from the things that I do around my house. Uh,
Yep.
and about probably 6 weeks in, and seeing how much that I changed and how much that movement alone changed how I felt, I realized that my doctor was absolutely right. You know, getting up and moving your body and getting your heart rate up is so important. And while nutrition is important for weight loss, exercise is so important for health.
I would agree with that. And I can relate too, because I live on an acreage. You know, I have the horses, I have the dogs, I have the cats. And I just got chickens. So I'm very excited about that. But I've always lived on a farm and I've always been active, but I wouldn't say that I was healthy or that I was fit. Maybe going back into like the years that I was in sports because, you know, in high school and things like that. But that's, I mean, that's years and years and years ago. But after that, you know, like you think moving a bale of hay here and there qualifies you as healthy. You know, as I'm sitting there smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer, and I'd go inside and eat a hot dog and freaking Twinkies, you know, and just
Right.
because I was able to do that, I thought that, you know, I had a very skewed perception of what health was. So after doing that first beta test, like what was your aha moments after doing that? Either physically, emotionally, mentally, like what went through your brain?
Well, a couple of things happened. I did lose the weight, um, and that was pretty exciting. But I also found things like I had more energy. I just felt better all around, and I was happier, not just even with myself, but just in general. I was a better mom. I was a better wife. I didn't dread doing the chores like I had, you know? I mean, even before, like bending down to pick up a dog bowl would be something that I'm like, oh, I got to get all the way on the
Or
ground.
you'd throw your back out. That's something
Right.
that I would do. I'm like, oh, I geeked myself somehow, and now I can't walk for a week.
Exactly. And, you know, the aches and pains started going away that I thought were just a sign of getting older. Um, but one of the biggest things that happened for me was that made me realize that this was a way of life that I needed to follow was my anxiety that I had suffered with for years on end, really as long as I can remember, started to get better. And I had been on medication since I was 18 years old, and they changed the medications around. I had doctors try and take me off of it when I was pregnant, and I absolutely couldn't because I was a wreck. I was basically constantly a ball of anxiety, and the medication took the edge off. At one point,
So would you say that it was kind of just numbing it, like putting a Band-Aid over it and not really like healing the symptom? Or
absolutely. And while I believe that there are points in our lives that, you know, when suffering with that, that those things are needed, it really irks me that doctors who are prescribing these medications are not telling people there are other things that you can do to help yourself. Um,
yeah.
and that's something that I never knew until it kind of accidentally happened. Um, but for, you know, the first time I actually could go days without feeling anxious and with, you know, not wake up feeling anxious. And that was just a huge thing for me. Because like I said, I'd suffered all my life. I remember at one point having to take Xanax just to work. And that's just, life shouldn't be like that. So after my little group, I realized how much better I felt. And I finally decided, I actually waited a while because I wanted to make sure it stuck. And I decided to get off the medication. And it's been probably 2 years since I have had to take it. And it's very freeing at that because, you know, most of those medications, if you don't take them, then you feel awful. And so it's nice not to have to be dependent on that just to survive my days. And I feel better than I ever did on it. So while it was probably needed when I first started it, I definitely diving into health and taking care of myself was just life changing and being able to deal with anxiety.
I love that. So I have a question
Sure.
because I know, like for me, that if I have excessive sugar or excessive caffeine, or like there's certain trigger foods for me. So did you ever find out like what your trigger foods were, or was it just that you started to eat more whole foods, or what was kind of the thing that worked for you?
I actually did. So I'll tell you that I ate perfectly for the first 2 months, which was great because it allowed my body to heal itself. And then every now and then, you know, I believe in living life. Every now and then I would have a treat. And I learned that gluten was a huge trigger for my anxiety.
Oh,
And it took me a while to kind of connect that, you know, that anytime I would have it, the next day I would wake up feeling like I used to feel all the time. And I started paying a lot more attention to what I was having. And so I realized that was what it was. So I avoid, that is something I won't, for lack of better term, cheat with that because I know how it affects me. And but I will tell you, I know if I accidentally get it too. I've had situations in restaurants. And, while so many people think like, I can't give up bread or I can't do those things, let me tell you, you couldn't pay me to eat a slice of bread because I don't want to feel that way.
Yeah. And I think it just depends on like each person individually. And I like how you kind of say that, where you figure out what works for you and then you stick with it. And, the next person may not be able to give up bread. Well, they may not have a gluten allergy to where it could potentially be a disruption in their everyday life. Like, it comes down to like, how do you want to feel, right? Like, I choose not to drink in excess because I feel like crap the next day. I mean, I've gone months and months where I was sober without having a drink. And then I decide, oh, I want to have one or two drinks. I end up having like 3 sips and I'm done because I'm like, is it worth it? Like it. And so I love that you're just like giving yourself permission and giving everybody else permission. Like, hey, if you don't want to give it up, don't give it up, but figure out what makes you feel good and then do that.
Right. And that's something, allowing your body to heal itself, to get into balance is a great way to start off something. But, you don't have to, and, like I said, I was perfect for 2 months, but following this plan, and it was really good for me. But again, you still have to be able to live life, but it allowed me to experiment with what foods triggered certain things. And so that's definitely something that I encourage clients to do, is to, follow an anti-inflammatory diet, to follow kind of an elimination type diet, to get your body where it needs to be in order to learn more about it and how it functions with certain things.
So have you done the Whole30 diet then?
No,
or something similar?
No, the diet that I follow, or lifestyle, I guess, better word.
Okay, I like that.
How I eat, like 90% of the time, was put together by a nutrition expert and a medical doctor who follows functional medicine practices. And so functional medicine is about getting to the root of the problem, healing your body, things like that. I'm actually studying under her to become a certified functional medicine health coach so that I can help my clients in that way. And a lot of what I've studied and I've learned over the years, it is within those principles, but basically I'm just going to be getting that stamp of certification on it.
Yeah.
And it was just designed, higher carb, lower fat. I mean, I'm sorry, I reversed it. Lower carb, higher fat, and kind of diet, but also eliminating what are the foods that are triggers for a lot of people. And I'm not talking keto. It is ketogenic. However, when I hear the word keto, I think of basically what the fad diet is, which can be really dangerous for people and cause a lot of problems long term. This is more something just to tap into the benefits of the ketogenic diet while healing your body and with helping you to have a better health versus setting you up for problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I know that there's I don't even really like to use the word diet, because I feel like people think of fad diets instead of like a diet is in like what you eat. Like if you refer to diet for like animals, it's like, oh, what type of feed are you giving them? Like what's their nutritional intake throughout the day? It's such a different word when it comes to humans. And I feel like we put like a weird swing on it, when really diet to me is just like, what are you consuming throughout the day that's meeting your nutritional needs versus like trying to lose weight or have like this fad around it. But
exactly.
I could go on and on about that. So let's talk about the movement piece though, because I know nutrition is a huge part of it, but let's talk about the movement piece and what that meant to you, getting your body moving and how that transitioned. And I mean, I don't know how much you can speak on like actual physical movements or functional movements or the programs, things like
So,
that.
um, getting my body moving at first, like I said, was something that was really hard. But over time, it got easier. And I found, at first I was just like, okay, I'll fit it in my day wherever I can. And then I started getting up early to work out because I loved how it made me feel. Just getting up and moving my body. And I, it just, it worked out the kinks from laying in bed all night. It spiked those endorphins that made me feel good and excited about my day. And I started to shape my body for the first time in my life, which was pretty cool. I had, like I said, I'd spent a lot of time at the gym, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I started following these programs that were put together by professional trainers and designed to be effective. And I didn't even, when I started, I didn't even really know what to expect. And so along the way, I just kept being pleasantly surprised. And um, yeah, I love it. I went from wanting to sit on the couch unless I had to do something to how can I be active today? And not just in the exercise, but getting outside and walking with my son or, playing on the playground with him, different things like that. And it was pretty life-changing. And also being able to carry things that I couldn't carry before. I'm 5'1", tiny build, and
You're only 5'1". You look
I,
so much taller online. I'm like, oh, she's probably like 5'7", 5'8".
no way. I am like the size of a 12-year-old. Um, both my girls are taller than me, and I'm sure by the time Tucker's 10, he's gonna be working on trying to get taller than me.
Oh, that is too funny.
And so, but because of, I've always been a small build, and it was interesting. I saw a post this morning where a friend of mine was talking about how people associate being small or tiny or petite, whatever you want to call it, with not being strong. And
Ooh, yes.
I kind of embrace that because that was something that I was always, I guess, society made me believe that had to be true. And so, I couldn't even, like, we'd buy big cases of water bottles and I couldn't carry them in, or the horse feed, or, the dog food, things like that. Like I
Yeah.
would try on occasion, but because I had kind of allowed myself to believe that I couldn't be strong, I never did things to make myself stronger. And it just kind of happened. And I remember the first time throwing a bag of dog food over my shoulder, a 55-pound bag, and carrying it in. And I was like, wow. um, I just proved that mentality wrong. Like, you don't have to be weak just because you're petite or small. And that was pretty exciting for me. That was something that I never wanted to let go, I guess.
I love how that's just so simple. I mean, it's simple, but it's powerful in the same sense. Like, I just wanted to be able to carry my dog food or carry my horse feed. And that is hard work. Like, it is. Like, I don't know if the average person knows that, horse feed is 40 or 50 pounds a bag, and you get several bags. And somebody like yourself who has 5 dogs, I used to have 5 dogs. I'm down to 3 now, but they're big dogs. So we still go through lots and lots of dog food, and those are 40, 50 pounds each. And it's a workout in and of itself just to be able to feed the animals that you have. So by implementing, an act, like a workout routine or a fitness routine or something like that, like you're just making yourself stronger to be able to carry those things and to be able to like better care for your animals and your kids, and just because you're small doesn't mean you're not mighty. Like,
right. For sure.
I hear you on that one. I'm not super, I'm like 5'5". I'm like average. I do have some family members though that are less than 5 feet tall, and I know that they can relate to that. And I played roller derby with those girls, and just because they weren't 5 foot tall did not mean that they were any less tough than any. They were probably some of the toughest mofos out there,
Right.
I
Well,
love that.
yeah. And it was also, I didn't have to be dependent on other people anymore, which was nice. My husband traveled a lot for work back then, and I would have to plan getting things around him being home.
So you did kind of like regain your independence then by doing this too.
Definitely.
So what other big aha moments did you have kind of over this journey? Either well, hang on, let's take a step back, because now you're a health coach, right? Like this is what you do.
Yes.
So where did you decide to make the shift? Like, oh my gosh, this has changed my life so much, I want to help other people.
So I did my thing for about 1.5 years, give or take, and just stayed consistent in my own journey. But along that time, I kind of started thinking, like, I would really like to help other people. I would like to share with them this feel good that I have, this different way of life, this success, and learning along the way. One of the things that happened was I learned to love myself a lot more. I learned to stop picking apart my body, which was, I mean, gosh, really sad.
I can relate to that though.
My now 17-year-old used to be the one who would tell me, "No, Mom, you're beautiful," when I would look in the mirror and say things about how I didn't like how I looked, or this, that, and the other. And sad, because your kid shouldn't have to be the one bringing you up. But I was horrible, and I was so sucked into it that I never saw how it even affected my kids, because that was just how I had talked to myself my whole life. And as I learned to love my body because I was taking care of it, and stop picking it apart, that was kind of a huge defining moment in wanting to share with other people. So I sat back and I learned, and I didn't really know how to put myself out there, because traditionally I'm kind of a shy person. That's something that I've worked on, but I still didn't have that confidence too. And so I sat back and I learned everything that I could. And then I kept thinking, I'd like to do this, but I just don't know. Then I saw your free webinar, and I was actually soaking in an Epsom salt bath and had it sitting on the side of the tub playing.
This is like the best story ever.
I had it playing a recording, and I just sat there and I listened to it, and I was like, I can do this. Like, I have wanted to do this. My heart has been telling me that this is something you need to do. I was a stay-at-home mom, like I said, with my husband traveling, and I needed something that was mine too. Something that gave me purpose outside of cleaning the house and feeding everybody, which I'm blessed to be a stay-at-home mom, but at the same time, I think it's important to have something that's purposefully yours.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. And so, yeah, laying there in my tub, watching your recording, I said, I want to do this. And so I started taking the steps and putting myself out there and helping people and changing lives. And it has been one of the best decisions that I ever made.
I love that. I that just makes me feel so happy because I know that there's people who watch these things and you know, you see all these webinars out there, and so it's really cool to see how they actually can help somebody. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So as far as like putting yourself out there, because you do look like a pretty confident individual now. Like I follow you on social media and I'm always like, wow, okay, that's really awesome. So what was like that first step? Like, what did that feel like?
You know, for the longest time, every time I put things out there, like I wanted to puke. Um, I was looking at an old picture this morning and I remember posting it and thinking, oh my gosh, you know, like this is so uncomfortable, but I kept doing it. And like I was the person who before only showed pictures of my kids. I was never, you know, I was the mom who was not in pictures because I didn't like being in pictures. And if I was going to share things, I would share pictures of my kids or my animals. And even when I first started, I I would share stories and pictures about my kids. And it's funny, if you scroll back in my Instagram, you can kind of see my own growth over time. But starting to do it and putting my face on things and excuse me, you know, just taking a leap every single day to share my story, to share about helping others, really help grow my confidence. And I also did a lot of personal development throughout that, which I think is
So,
an important factor.
oh, absolutely. So what kind of personal development did you do? Like my whole thing with personal development, I mean, I started with like law of attraction type of stuff and then I kind of moved into the morning routine, but what did that look like for you?
Um, let's see. Some of my favorites, my first personal development book that I listened to the whole way through was um Rachel Hollis's Girl Wash Your Face. And up until that, I thought personal development was silly. I actually, while I was learning, I had so many people tell me, you know, you really should delve into personal development. And I'm like, you know, I'll do all these things, but that's not for me. But I was really encouraged by somebody to listen to that book. And because here's the thing, if I sit down and read, I will probably fall asleep. That's just me. I've always been that way. But so I listen. I have an Audible account and I get books that way. But yeah, that was my first one and I listened to it. And it's interesting because me now listening to that book, I don't think it would do anything for me. But me then, it was really eye-opening, and it was just a little bit of something to help me build my confidence, to learn that other women had gone through similar things in life as me. And then I kind of started getting, I would almost say, addicted to it, because with every book I felt a little bit more confident. I felt a little bit more um, excited about, you know, crushing life, about sharing my story, about putting myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other books were Shaun T's T is for Transformation. I love that.
Oh, I haven't read that one yet.
Oh, it's so good. Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone.
I do like Grant Cardone. I go back and forth on him. He's pretty masculine energy, but I do think that he has an overall good message. So I do like Grant Cardone.
Yes. Stop Doing That Shit by Gary John Bishop. Such a good book.
I'll have to add that one to my list too. What else you got?
It's really good. It helps. It's one of those things like, why do we do the things that we do? that sets
Mm.
ourselves up for where we self-sabotage. It was a really good book.
Oh, I need that book then. That's like my number one thing that I struggle with is self-sabotage. Like anytime, and maybe you can relate to this, maybe the listeners can relate to this. Like, but when things start to get going good, you're like, oh gosh, things are too good. Like, what's going to happen? That's going to screw everything up.
Yes, for sure. High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard.
Oh, I love that one.
The 5-second rule. It's funny because you mentioned that one in your podcast. And I applied the 5-second rule for a lot of things, like just sometimes clicking post on my posts or things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But it was a while before I actually listened to the book. And I wish that I think every person on the face of the planet could benefit from the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. It is
Oh,
one of the
absolutely.
best. I love it. I could,
This,
what's
yeah,
that?
no, I was just going to say, I totally agree. And, you have to be ready for it though. Cause I think a lot of people are intimidated by the 5-second rule because they're like, is this really going to work? Or their self-doubt kicks in or the excuses kick in, and once you're like, okay, I'm done with the excuses. Like I'm going to make it happen. That book usually appears and then people are ready for it and then they implement it because the 5-second rule only works if you actually do it. And so it's kind of like challenging your limiting beliefs, like, challenging your ability to take action. And some people don't want their shit thrown in their face. So they try to avoid the books that they think will, kind of call them out on their shit. And so that's why I love the book so much because it like squashed every excuse I ever had. And once I started to actually do the things that it said, I was like, wow, this can be so easy if I just let it.
Right, exactly. And then my current book is Everything is Figure Outable, which, it's interesting because
Is that Marie Forleo?
yes.
Okay.
And I'm about halfway through. I haven't listened as much this week with everybody home and not having schedules, and we're working on getting back to that. But normally I listen when I'll put on my Alexa and crank it up while I'm in the shower. That's me time. And I'll listen, or while I'm doing laundry or dishes. I try and do it when my mind would otherwise wander and make me overthink things or worry.
Yeah.
But it's funny that sometimes I feel like books like these, once you start delving into it, they just fall in at the right time and place that you need them. With everything going on right now, I think having that idea of everything is figure outable at the front of my mind has been really helpful in keeping my own stress levels down.
I might have to read that then. I'm listening to a podcast. One of my favorite all-time podcasts is Rich Roll. I don't know. I just love that guy. I love that family. I love their mission. And they're talking about kind of what's going on right now and how to mentally, emotionally, physically kind of prepare yourself for what's happening in the world. So I don't know if you want to like touch on that because I know everybody's lives are really totally flipped upside down for most of us. I mean, there's people out there without jobs. There's people like me who, I have the ability to work from home and the office, but like I just got this new office and now it's like, okay, well, nobody's going to come meet me there. So it kind of, threw a wrench into things there. And trying to work at home with kids or spouses sometimes still work or you still have bills to pay. I mean, there's just so much going on right now. And with this whole quarantine and COVID-19, I mean, what are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I think that this is one of those things where we have to look at like what can we accomplish given our situation. One of those things is taking care of your own health. I see so many people who, they're scared about what's going on. They're, stress eating. They're, I was doing so well, but now I'm just going to throw away everything I was doing. And like, now is the time to take care of your own health. Eat real food. Don't keep the snacks, the Oreos in your pantry because you're likely to go eat the whole thing if you're stressed. I was actually talking this morning about one of the things that I do, well, I saw a funny thing where on Netflix says, are you still watching? And somebody's like, well, of course we're still watching. We're in quarantine. We're going to be watching for a while. Can you change that to, are you sure you really want to eat that? And, one of my things is being home and being stressed. It is really easy to fall into boredom eating or stress eating, but I keep healthy snacks in my house. So if I do fall into it, I eat real food, cherry tomatoes or carrots or things like that. And I keep things that I have to cook, because if I have to make it, then do I really want it?
That
If
is
it's
so true. That one is so true for me. If I have even like snacks you can like binge on, like me, I have to buy a lot. Like I buy a lot of fruits and veggies. I kind of play this, like the thing that always comes to my mind, I can't remember who said this. It was probably on the Rich Roll podcast, but they talked about foods that are dead or alive.
Mhm.
Dead meaning like processed, have been touched multiple times, and alive is like as close to its natural state as possible, maybe touched once or twice. Um, and so I try to put a lot of alive foods, real foods in my household. But then I find like I'm I'm on two ends of the spectrum when it comes to stress eating. When I'm like super stressed, I don't eat anything. But when I'm like sad or depressed, I like can't stop eating. But even those healthy foods, that's why I try to keep a lot of things that I have to cook, because I could eat like a whole container of strawberries. I could eat 2 pineapples. I could eat like an entire thing of bananas as just like emotional eating.
Mhm. Yep, I can relate. I I found I used to stress not eat, and I found one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that helps me with that is keeping a schedule. Like, this is about when I'm going to eat every day, and just following it. And thinking about the fact when I eat, like, that I need this food to fuel my body so I can deal with my stress.
Yep.
So those things definitely help. But, you know, one of the things is that noticed at the grocery store is so much of the processed food is what's gone. And I don't think that people realize that that processed food dampens your immune system. So in a
Yeah,
time
it's
where
full of sugar, and sugar is like not something that you want to be ODing on, because that kind of,
definitely,
it can weaken your immune system. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but that's just from nutritional reading that I've done.
definitely, and there's a lot of stuff that your body doesn't even necessarily identify as food in so many of the processed foods.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yep.
So, right now is when you need to be eating healthy. And if you're stuck home with nothing to do and you don't cook, learn to cook right now. I mean, there's so much out there on the internet and YouTube videos. And, um, I think that using this time, especially you and I work from home, so life isn't a whole lot different except for nobody ever leaves. But I think for people that are stuck home, that don't know what to do with their time, finding something that will better their lives, like learning to cook, or implementing exercise if they're not already doing it. Um, Things that they can bring back to life once it gets back to normal and continue doing would be so wonderful. Um, and, once you get into the routine of something, it's so easy to keep it going. And like, starting is the hardest thing. So, rather than just sitting on your couch, getting out there and going for a walk, just getting your body moving, getting some sunshine. You never know, you might find that you're getting these long walks in and you might want to start running, or even just putting on some dance videos and dancing with the kids, just something to get your body moving, because it is so easy to just sit on the couch and Netflix all day until it asks you if you're still watching. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid
And
that a lot of people's health is going to tank because of this.
I think you're right. I think it's going to go one of two ways. I think there's going to be a lot of people who realize like, hey, I'm going to implement, like I have the time. Like I was just talking to my sister the other day and she called me and she goes, you're going to be so proud of me. And I was like, why? What happened? She's like, I went for a walk and I read 2 books this week. And I was like, holy smokes. Because, you know, sometimes we're so busy. We feel like we don't have time to take care of ourselves. We don't have time to do the things that we've been wanting to do, that we've been putting off or putting on the back burner. And it's like, you know, I know that there's sick people out there. I know that this is a very serious thing.
Yes.
I know, I understand that, and I am saddened by that. But at the same time, I'm trying to look at the silver lining, and that is that the universe or God or whoever you believe in has blessed us with nothing but time. Right. So the only thing we have right now is time. And what are you going to do with that time? Like, you know, and I just heard again, I don't remember if this was a podcast or a story, but they said, you know, if you only had 2 weeks left to live and you're stuck at home, what are you going to do? Do you want your legacy to be like, oh, I just sat on the couch and watched Netflix the whole time? Or do you want it to be like, no, I laughed and I loved and I enjoyed my children and we got outside and we connected? And, you know, everybody's different. I understand that. But like that really hit home with me. And I'm like, what am I doing with my day? Do I want to just sit here for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Who knows? I mean, it could be months. Am I just going to sit my ass on the couch and wither away? Or am I going to do something that's going to, you know, make me proud, make me feel good, make my family feel good? So that may be very worldly or like next level, but that's just kind of how my brain operates. Not to say that I don't like watch a Disney Plus movie every now and then, but like I don't let it consume my whole day.
Exactly. I think stress relief is another thing that
absolutely
needs to be addressed with everything going on right now. And I think that there's a lot of moms who have never had their kids home so much or their spouse home so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is, we're talking about having time, you know, use this time to implement some things into your life where you can focus on you. You know, go spend an hour by yourself. You know, if your spouse is home or if they still have to work, maybe when they get home, like even if it's once a week, spending some time just to yourself to refresh, do whatever it is you want to do. Go soak in the bath, go for a walk. I try just about every single day, whether it be 10 minutes or an hour, to intentionally get some time to myself so that I'm not overwhelmed by everybody being here. And that we have had periods of time with everybody home before, and I found I didn't do that, and I found by, you know, every day, every other day, by implementing me time, I am a lot less stressed and I'm a lot nicer to them. And where that came from was I had started doing that about once every week or two, just having me time. And I realized I just need it more.
Yeah, and I like how you touched on the point, like even if it's 10 minutes, because I feel like, especially my listeners or my followers, we tend to be like all or nothing type of people. Like, oh, if I can't do the whole workout, then I'm not going to do it at all. If it can't be perfect, I'm not going to do it. And so me, I try not to set like super, super strict expectations on myself, because then I get into that like, oh, nothing's right. I get really stuck in perfectionism. So if you even have 10 minutes, like jogging in place for 10 minutes, doing a 5-minute meditation and a 5-minute journaling, you know, putting headphones in for 10 minutes and listening to just straight orchestra music where you don't have to like hear kids yelling or whatever it is. Like it can be anything as long as it's 10 minutes of your choosing, you know? And so like me, I try to get up before my kids. And now that I have 2 kids, you know, they have like this weird inner alarm clock where they just know when I'm going to get up. It doesn't matter how early it is. And I have about 10 minutes before they both wake up. Now I've to the point where like I'll finish my morning routine with them there, but I only have about 10 minutes to myself. And so I try to get in, a quick meditation, and then I get started on my journaling. And I've noticed that the days that I don't do that, where I let like the kids wake up early consume me, because you can get caught in like the kids are up, I don't get my time for myself. And you kind of take that energy throughout your day. You know what I mean?
Right. And kids, they adapt. That's something.
No, they do.
Even working out at home, like people I've had tell me, like, I couldn't work at home. I work out at home. I have kids. And
they watch though. They watch. This morning, I did yoga and Oakland was right there doing her little downward dog right next to me.
Right. And so I'll tell you, the first little bit was a struggle, just teaching him a new thing. He was young. My older kids, of course, they understood, and they just kind of stand and stare. And what are you doing, Mom? You're not going to make me exercise, are you? No. But the first little bit, when you start anything new, it is a teaching moment. It is mom needs to take care of herself too. And there were times that I had to stop and get a snack or wipe a butt or, all the mom things, but I stayed consistent with it and it got better. And now sometimes my son works out with me in his own little way. Sometimes we'll do, especially with we've had a lot of rain. So there's been a lot of days that we couldn't get out. So we'll do dance videos together or kid workout videos or things like that. Just to get him moving. But the difference between him and my girls is that he just has grown up. I started while he was at a young enough age that he's just grown up seeing that this exercise is a part of life. And, in anything that you do in front of your kids, your kids will probably grow up knowing that meditation and journaling is a part of life. And they adapt, they as the older they get, the more they will respect that as your time.
Yeah, I think that it's important to state that kids will adapt, right? And it will become the norm if you make it the norm. Exactly. Right? So, and they have to adjust to the routine too. Just because one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm going to take up this morning routine, and they've never been used to that, it's different to them. And anything that's different, you're going to go through a resistance period, right? Because they're like, what are you doing? You're not like at my beck and call first thing in the morning, like what's going on? And they have to make that adjustment too. So it's like waiting out that transition period to get everybody on the same, habits, get everybody on the same routine. And whatever you implement when they grow up will be the normal for them, right? So like, it was normal for us growing up to not wear seatbelts in the back seat. It was normal for us to have our parents smoking in the car. It was normal for XYZ, right? Shoving your face full. Like our thing was nutty bars and hot dogs. Like it was normal. That was a meal, right? Now my kids will never know what smoking in a car is. My kids will never know what it's like to ride in a car without a seatbelt or a car seat. My kids will never, I shouldn't say never eat hot dogs or nutty bars, but that will never be a meal that I will serve them. Does that make sense? And so whatever, sorry. And now my kids are just going to start talking to us. But that's just part of it. And you as the adult, as the parent, have to push through that resistance and just look at the lighting at the end of the tunnel, right? So sometimes going through that deep, dark forest can feel tough, but like once you get to the other side, it's so much easier and you feel so much better. And if you can't do it for yourself, do it for your freaking kids,
Yes, definitely. And everything you just said applies to getting kids to eat healthy too.
Absolutely.
That is something that, a lot of times people will say I don't want to cook 2 meals. I'm like, don't.
Stop. Why are you cooking 2 meals?
Your kids need to eat healthier too. If you are cooking making yourself a salad and roasted vegetables and your kids are eating Kraft mac and cheese every night, then, we need to reevaluate this.
See, and I agree with that because and not that my kids, again, don't eat hot dogs, mac and cheese, pizza. Like we still eat those things, but it's not the norm. It's like the exception to the rule, right? It's not like, okay, if you're not going to eat chicken and veggies tonight, you can have maybe applesauce or oranges. Like you can have an alternative, but it's probably going to be a fruit or a vegetable or a leftover from another night. I'm not like, okay, whatever. Like, here, have a thing of cookies. Here, have this. Like, it's, if you're going to go hungry,
Right.
figure it out.
Kids will eat if they're hungry. And that's something, I didn't do a very good job of that with my older two girls. They, it was kind of late. I was kind of late to the party on figuring that one out. And luckily my oldest has always ate really well, but my middle child, like, we had a lot of struggles because she was almost a teenager when I started realizing that I have fed this kid, grilled cheese and mac and cheese all her life.
But you can even make those healthier options. So like there is healthier option mac and cheese. There are healthier option grilled cheese. And so if you're going to, and there's healthier option chicken nuggets, there are healthier option hot dogs, there's healthier option everything. And so maybe, even like cutting it out, maybe you just select the healthy alternative to
Definitely. And I can't tell you, I never feed my kids chicken nuggets, but we do. We go with.
Oh, we do too.
Sometimes mom just doesn't want to cook. I'm like, well, let's see. I could eat leftovers and make them chicken nuggets, or I could cook a full meal. And tonight I just don't want to cook a full meal.
Yep.
I mean, I don't,
there's definitely a balance to it.
Yes.
There's a balance to it. And I think you can overdo anything. Like you can overeat so much. And this is just me personally saying this, but like for me, if I like do nothing but eat healthy for like 2 weeks, I almost feel like I need to have a binge day because I'm like, oh, I've been eating so healthy for 2 weeks versus if I just let myself like have, I don't know, freaking a candy bar here or a glass of wine here, then I can tend to be on more of a habitual schedule versus like trying to get back into the perfectionism of things. And sometimes, it just comes down to what works for you and your family. And we all know the healthier option and just be like, okay, if I can make the healthier option, great. If today's not that day, make tomorrow the day,
I aim for like I aim for a 90 to 95%,
I was like,
yep. It's probably 85, again, you gotta
I'm in
live
the 80
life.
to 90 range.
you gotta live life. And,
true. Yeah.
I don't, with my kids, I don't want them to grow up and be like, mom never let us have anything. So, now I have access to anything I want. And I'm going to go buy the gas station out of candy bars because I can. So finding that balance in, what we all do most of the time versus having to do it all of the time is really important. I don't ever want them to feel like we were so deprived. And in Sean Key's book, he actually talked about that. His food was always limited, and because they were very poor. When he went off to college, he had unlimited access to food, and he didn't know how to handle it. And he gained a lot of weight his first semester of college because of it. So that's something I always try and keep at the front of my mind. Like, how can I make sure that they have fun foods, but feed them well most of the time. And it was, like I said, there were some struggles in transitioning to healthier eating for them. But, now I cook dinner and 99% of the time what's on their plate is eaten because they're just used to it. And they've learned to love different things.
Yep. I love that. And I think I just want to add like my 2 cents in there. Like I had all of the snacks and the junk food when I was growing up. So when I had the opportunity to start buying healthy foods and organic foods, I went from like extreme cheap processed foods to like high dollar organic food. And I like totally broke my budget. I can't tell you how many times because I was like trying to do the extreme opposite and just understanding that like making that switch doesn't happen overnight. It happens very gradually. At least it should.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'll probably end up like me where you're like, oh, shit, I don't know how to make this payment because I spent $400 at the grocery store on all organic food when I normally only spend $100. So it is a transition, and just, making healthier options day by day instead of like just waking up one day and saying like, oh, all this stuff's going in the trash. Just maybe next time you buy a little bit different.
Right. Exactly. Sometimes you just have to, for some people, they want to clean their whole house out, but like, you got to do what works for you. And
exactly.
so often I see people are like, I've tried X, Y, and Z, and none of it worked. And I'm like, well, those were some pretty strict things. Did you just dive right in? Excuse me. They're like, yep, 2 weeks later, it was just too much and I quit. And I'm like, well, I can see why. Let's make one change. Let's just do one thing today.
Exactly. One thing at a time. And I feel like we could go on and on and on about this, but yes, one thing at a time. I totally am with you on that. So before we start to wrap this up though, what do you want to leave listeners with? And then I want to talk about how they can get a hold of you and like what's coming up.
Well, there's always been a saying that eat less, move more. And I want to tell you that more importantly than eat less, to think about what you're eating. And if it's to fuel your body, or, just because you're bored or you're stressed, or if it's just junk. So, and definitely move more, intentionally move your body every day. I guess that's it.
I love that. No, that's good. I like the eat less, move more. I used to say that all the time. Like that's like if anybody wants to lose weight, that's like the golden rule, right? Eat less, move more.
Right.
But I mean, it's also has to do with like what you're eating and fueling your body. Like if you think of your body as like a car, like you wouldn't fill that car full of shit and expect it to run, or expect it to get you to point A to point B. No, you got to put the right thing in it that's going to fuel it, be energizing. So
exactly.
I think that's very important. So, okay. So what do you got coming up, and how can people contact you?
Well, I always am always accepting new clients who want to improve their health. I believe in getting healthy to lose weight, not losing weight to get healthy. So if that resonates with you, then we would probably be a good match. With everything going on right now, I don't have anything special planned. Sometimes I will do week trials to my full coaching. But I really like to bring on people so I can work with them one-on-one and tailor things to their specific needs in life. And you can reach me. My Instagram and my Facebook are both at Marie S. Stallings. So it's MariesStallings.
Right. Well, thank you. I will make sure to put those links in the show notes so that people can follow you and learn more about you. And I just love this conversation. I think it's so cool how we just met on Instagram, and then you took a webinar, and now here you are. Like you have your whole transformation story. You have a whole business now. I mean, you're helping other people. I feel like that's something to be super proud of. And I can't wait to see where you go, because I will definitely be creeping. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. I just wish we lived in the same town.
I know.
I've told my husband, I'm like, I think Sasha and I would have so much fun together, but I think we also could be trouble together.
Oh my God. I know. That's like the best though. I even said that to my husband. I'm like, there's like a couple of girls online that someday I'm going to go meet them, and we're just going to have a freaking party. It's going to be so much fun. Cause I do agree. I think that we would get along great, but we also could be trouble. That could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you for having me.
This was awesome. Everybody still with us here, go ahead, go over, follow Marie on Instagram. Hit her up, message her. Oakland thinks so too. She just says, go, go.